I believe they are 1.5 inches wide. They're billet aluminum.
If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. Ha! Dare to be you. This world is just a canvas to our imagination. Turn a figment of your mind into creation.
What's up, creators? It's your boy, Mad Mike. If you're new to the channel, behind me is my 1985 Pontiac Fiero Ferrari kit car replica. It's a replica of a KOENIG Ferrari Testarossa. It's been a project that I've been rebuilding over the past 2 years now. I've recently moved across the country from BC in Canada over to Ontario. So it's been a pretty hectic move. The past couple of weeks have been crazy. I got surgery on my arm where I got a bunch of pins and plates removed from a bad snowmobile accident. So that's healing up quick. Hopefully in the next 6 weeks, I can get back to wrenching on the car. So what we're gonna do on today's episode is we're gonna pull the car out, give it a good wash, as well as I'm gonna throw the wheel spacers back onto the rear of the car and give you guys a little bit more shop tour, shop update, because I've built some workbenches and whatnot, so I'll give you a little bit more tour of the shop. So with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and mount the rear spacers back onto the project car, and then we'll pull it out and give it a good bath. If you guys are wondering why I'm wearing a DDE, Daily Driven Exotics hat, it's because they're a huge inspiration to me, and over the past 5 years, I've watched them grow their YouTube channel from basically nothing to what they have now, which is over 2 million subscribers. So they've been a huge inspiration, and I had to show my support and buy this hat off them and cop some merch. So that's why I'm wearing the DDE hat. I love what they do, I love what they're about. So that's why I'm wearing this DDE hat, because I respect them and I'm following in their footsteps, trying to grow my YouTube channel. First things first, as you guys can see, the tires are flat. They are pretty low on air, so I'm gonna have to go around the car, pump up the tires first. Once the tires have air in them, I'll go ahead and jack the car up. And then I got these wheel spacers. I don't know where they are actually. I gotta dig around my tools here and find the wheel spacers, but I want to throw the wheel spacers back on so that way when I'm doing some body work and whatnot, I got a good reference of where the wheels are going to line up, and I want to make sure that everything's looking good there. So let's go ahead, pump the tires up with air, jack the car up, and then we'll bolt on the rear wheel spacers. So I just went ahead and filled up all 4 tires back to the correct PSI. Next we're gonna go ahead and jack up the car and put on the wheel spacers that I have for the rear of the car, which are these bad boys right here. I believe they are 1.5 inches wide, and that was just enough. They're billet aluminum. That was just enough to bring the back wheels out flush with the body, because there's nothing worse than when you're building a kit car and your wheels are tucked way in. The fronts are pretty good. They could come out probably about 1 inch, as you can see here. But the problem is when you bring out the front tires, their turning radius gets affected and you start to rub on your fenders front and back. So we'll have to play around with that. I do have a set of 1-inch spacers that I can slap on, turn my wheels to see if I got clearance there or not. If I do, I'll go ahead and order a pair of adapters for the front too. Let's go ahead, grab these wheel adapters, spacers. I know there's a lot of controversy online about people using these, saying that they're not good to use, yada, yada, yada. In my opinion, they're totally fine, unless you're driving a big ass truck and you got like a 6-inch spacer on there. That will put some strain on your studs. But in this case here, this car is, you know, it's only a V6 4-speed manual, so it's not a really fast car anyways. You won't be going on the highway at 200 kilometers an hour. It's more of a backroads cruiser car. So if you do hit a pothole and something does happen to the studs where they shear off, I highly doubt it. But in that case, you go with a wide track suspension, so that way you can get rid of the spacers. But I like using spacers, cheap, simple, and you can really play with the gap to get your wheels exactly where you want them to line up with the body. So let's go ahead and slap on these rear wheel spacers. While we're talking about the wheel spacers, they're sitting on the new workbench that I just built. It's completely cluttered up right now, but this corner here was full of garbage when I first moved back into the Mad Lab. This shop used to be my old shop. Over 8 years ago, we built it on this property. I moved out to BC for a good 8 years and was having to work underneath a carport inside of the shipping container. But now we are back in the Mad Lab, and my brother's living here too, so he's got his workstation. He's got his son's workstation over here, Rod and Riker. So they got their workbenches, and over in my corner, I went ahead and built my workbenches. Then we'll be able to bring in the welders and all the other tools I have in my shipping container, and we'll be fully set up in here to be able to do anything. So this is a little workbench that I built. I built a little L-shaped workbench. That way below it, I don't have any studs that block me from sliding in compressors, bins, or toolboxes, you name it. All this TV's going, it's for sale. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up a nice big vise, mount it right here to this table. It's super solid. That way I can bend my steel and do what I have to do with the vise. Got all my tools set up here. I'll have my other tool cart down low. Then we'll have a nice clean work surface to work on parts. Whatever we have up on here, it's gonna be a lot easier to work on with a nice big open workbench. Gotta find my jack behind all these random banana seat bikes. My brother loves collecting old stuff, so do I. I'm all about the vintage stuff. There's a jack, gotta find my handle. There it is next to the unicycle. I'm gonna go ahead, crack the studs loose first while the car's on the ground. That way when the car's up in the air and you try to crack your studs loose, the tire will just spin. Alright, studs are cracked loose. Let's go ahead and jack up the rear end of the car. Bam, and just like that, back into the car's all jacked up. Tires are off the ground. So I can't find my impact gun. It's buried somewhere over here, but I don't mind using just hand torque for these. I'm not driving around, this is just for mock-up purposes, so I'll crank them tight anyways. That way if we need to drive around the block, it'll be fine. But once I find my impact gun that's buried in here, it'll be a lot quicker. Well, what do you know, guys? Dug through all these tools a bit and I ended up finding one of my small impacts. So I'll slap on that bit and see if that'll help me out a bit just to quickly pull the studs off the car. Look at the size of these rear tires. I think these are like 265s, so they're pretty damn wide. I do want to jump up to about 295s, maybe some 315s. That way I get rid of this kind of concave on the end here. I'd like the rubber to come out over and then more straight up and down. This is kind of more of an old school look that you'd see on a muscle car. Doesn't look too bad, but I would like to upgrade the size to like a 295, and that'll give it even more girth. But yeah, that is a beefy tire, guys. I got the rear wheel off of the car, so as you can see, I did notice too, it's rusty right now here, a little bit of surface rust, but there is Bilstein suspension on the car, so that is super cool. That is something I didn't notice over the 2 years that I had this car. I thought it was a stock springs in here, but they have lower springs with some Bilstein struts in the front and in the back. So I always like to start putting on the nuts by hand, that way you know you're not going to cross thread the studs, because that is no bueno. So let's go ahead, just hand tight these on, just a couple of threads, then we'll use the impact and torque them down by hand after that. if you guys can tell, but I am sweating like crazy. It is like 35 degrees out, so humid today. But we got the back tire back on the right side, the passenger side, so we just gotta do the driver's side next, and then we'll pull the car out. Here's the rear tire on. You can't tell right now the stance because it's all jacked up. So I'll finish the driver's side, and then we'll lower the car down and give you guys a glimpse of the before and after with the wheel spacers. There you go, guys. You can see how it comes out more flush with the body now than before. You can actually see that the rim is perfectly in line with the body, and that's why I love wheel spacers, because you can really play with that gap and get it really dialed in. Let's go ahead, pull the car out of the Mad Lab, give it a good bath because it hasn't been washed since the trip across Canada. I haven't washed this car in the 2 years that I've owned it, because the other house that I used to live at in BC, there was no exterior hose, so I actually just had to use a bucket with a cloth. But here, I got a hose. I don't have my pressure washer. We'll just give it a good rinse, just to get all the dust and bugs off. Idling a bit rich right now and a bit rough. I still got to drive the car down the road, get it over 45 kilometers an hour for a couple of miles. That way the computer can reset. So it's going to idle a little weird, but we'll be able to pull it out of the garage and give it a good bath. Well guys, the car is all washed up. I got the rear wheel spacers back onto the car. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Ciao, ciao.